Hey everyone, it's the Diplomat, and we are here on part 25 of the Chris Watts Discovery Read-Through. And in this part, we are going to go through another interview with the Mistress, some additional contact with Shanann's friend Nicole, as well as an interview with Luke, who is the supervisor of Chris at Anadarko. So the first number of pages here are CBI reports. This is dated August 21st, and it's referencing the first interview with the Mistress on August 16th. It lists victim number 1, Bella Watts, victim 2, Celeste Watts, victim number 3, Shanann Watts, witness number 1, Dwayne, that's the Mistress's father, witness number 2 is the Mistress, and then witness number 3 is Charlotte, which is a friend of the Mistress. Lists some property. Property number 1, handwritten card. Property number 2, greeting cards. Property number 3, miscellaneous clothing of Chris Watts. And property number 4, video interview with the Mistress on August 16th. Next page references the second interview with the Mistress. That's also by Kevin Kobach. And then witness number 1, the Mistress, witness number 2, Charlotte. And this is August 17th is the date of this interview. Action taken. On August 17, 2018, CBI agent Kevin Kobach spoke with the Mistress by telephone. I interviewed her at the Thornton Police Department on the previous day, and she called saying she had recalled more information regarding this case. My interview with her was audio recorded, and the audio recording is attached to this report. This interview has also been sent out for transcription as of August 22nd. The following is a summary of the interview. For an exact account, refer to the audio recording. She stated the following. The Mistress admitted to talking with her friend Charlotte about Chris and his children. She recalled on August 13, 2018, she and Chris FaceTimed. During the video call, Chris was laying on a mattress that did not have sheets on it. Chris said he was cleaning his home and trying to keep busy to keep his mind off things. The Mistress inquired why the bed in the video call did not have sheets on it, and Chris told her he had washed the sheets. Chris was quiet during the video call and did not say much. The Mistress said Chris was fixated on her and was staring at her during the video call. She said Chris is always cleaning his home and keeps it very clean, so did not think anything of Chris doing this after his family went missing. Chris also told her he had to wash his children's sheets as, quote-unquote, they smell. She was suspicious of this comment as Chris was so clean she did not know why the kids' sheets would be dirty. The Mistress said during a phone conversation on Monday, August 12th, with Chris, he was talking about Nicole, Shanann's friend, and her son coming to his home and finding Shanann, Bella, and Celeste missing, and then calling the police. During this conversation, Chris said he arrived home, and Nicole came into his home and was running all over the house, up and down the stairs. During this conversation, Chris said blankets were missing from his kid's room. The Mistress asked if Nicole could have taken the blankets, and Chris responded he believed that Shanann had taken the blankets. I asked the Mistress if Chris went to a specific gym. She did not know if Chris ever went to a gym and denied going to a gym with Chris. She said Chris worked out in his basement. She said she uses 24-hour fitness at 120th and Vrain in Broomfield, Colorado. I asked her if Chris used any steroids or narcotics. She said she did not know. She referenced Chris always using Thrive and said he always had 2 patches stuck to him all the time. Chris told her Thrive had helped him lose weight. I asked her if she and Chris had gone to the Colorado Rockies game on August 11th. She said they had not, and they went out to dinner at the Lazy Dog Bar. She said Chris told the babysitter, McKenna, he was going to the Rockies game so no one would find out about their relationship. After my conversation with her, she requested assistance dealing with the trauma from this case. I spoke with CBI victim advocate Hazel Heckers. Hazel agreed to initially speak with the Mistress and to assist her with finding assistance through the Weld County Victim Assistance Board. On August 17th, I assisted other members of the CBI with the preparation of search warrants in this case. The warrants were forwarded to Frederick Police Department for filing and service. Charlotte was later identified, and then it gives her full name and phone number. Nothing further. Investigation continues. So you probably want to go and look this one up on YouTube. You'll get a lot more from this, I think, than the summary. It does list an attachment, which is the audio of the interview. So next page is description is interview with Karen, which is friend of Shanann. Synopsis is on August 15th. CBI assisted Frederick PD in a missing persons case. Agent Galbraith interviewed Karen, friend and co-worker of Shanann, that also takes her children to Primrose Preschool. So actions taken. Agent Galbraith interviewed Karen, friend and co-worker of Shanann Watts. On August 15th at 10:28 hours, I spoke with Karen by phone. Karen reported that she was in Arizona for the conference over the weekend with Shanann. Karen took an earlier flight home, Broomfield, Colorado, than Shanann and Nicole. When Karen parted from Shanann, Shanann told her that she would see her tomorrow, August 13th. This was because Karen drops her children at Primrose, as Shanann does and planned to. Shanann was looking forward to the kids going to school because she had not been feeling well and was looking forward to getting them back in school and in a routine. Karen noted that Bella was not there when she dropped off her children. Karen heard from Nicole in regard to no one hearing from Shanann or knowing where she was. Nothing made sense to Karen, with all of Shanann's stuff being there. Nicole had told Karen that Chris said that Shanann was at a play date with the kids at a friend's. Nicole told Karen that Chris was telling Nicole to get away from the house because she was setting off an alarm when Nicole was trying to contact Shanann. To Karen, it seemed like Chris left the house as it was and planned to return and deal with Shanann's stuff later. Karen said that from what she was hearing, no one knew when the girls were actually last seen. Shanann did not get to Skype them over the weekend, and Karen did not think that Shanann talked with them over the weekend because it upsets them when they talk on the phone to her when she is out of town. Karen was not aware of any marital problems between Shanann and Chris until she learned from Cassie when she called looking for Shanann. Karen told me that Shanann seemed quote-unquote off all weekend in Arizona. Cassie, Nicole, and Shanann shared a room in Arizona. Shanann had confided in them. Karen thought it was weird that Shanann had gone to North Carolina for 6 weeks, as Karen thought that was a long time. Shanann said it was to see family and to build her business. Shanann never said anything about Chris. There were no red flags to Karen. She believed Chris was quiet, good with the kids, and there was no anger ever expressed. Karen said that Shanann got pregnant because Chris wanted another baby. Bella was an easy baby, and Cece was a handful. Shanann said she would not have a third baby, but Chris wanted a boy, and Shanann got pregnant. Shanann was nervous, but became excited. She seemed happy when she found it out she was having a boy. Shanann was then quiet over the weekend in Arizona. Karen said that it surprises her that Chris told her he wanted to separate the night she returned from the trip. The director of Primrose asked Karen if she knew the Wattses were selling their house. The only thing that Karen knew was that Shanann mentioned that Chris had an inside heads-up that an oil and gas site was coming across from their house and it would drop their property value. There was no plan in place to actually move or sell. There was nothing impending, but they did not actually finish the conversation on August 12th while in Arizona. Karen saw Shanann in the hotel lobby in Arizona on August 12th, and Shanann told her she would see her tomorrow, August 13th. It was clear that the girls were scheduled to attend Primrose all week. It is the last week that Karen's girls will be there, and Bella and Cece had been gone for 6 weeks. Karen's kids were anxious to get to see Bella and Cece this week, starting August 13th. Karen knew that Shanann and Chris had plans to go to Aspen together the weekend of August 18th. Amanda was going to watch Bella and Cece. It was determined that Karen did not possess first-hand information about the call Chris placed to the preschool. She learned of the call from other parents and then called the director to confirm that Chris had called to report kids would not be there and they were selling their house. Interview concluded at 10:50 hours. Okay, next is continued CBI reports, August 21st. This is a description, initial response to Frederick PD from CBI Tammy Lee with backup Matthew Saylor. Synopsis. On Tuesday, August 14th, I, Tammy Lee, was asked to respond to the Frederick Police Department, which was located in Frederick, Colorado, to assist with a missing person investigation. Upon arrival, agents with CBI and FBI were briefed regarding a missing person investigating involving Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. So listed down here is the address: victim 1, Bella Watts; victim 2, Celeste Watts; victim 3, Shanann Watts; witness 1, Nicole, Shanann's friend; and witness 2, Chris. And then employer 1 is Tony, who is the security manager. Officers listed: Dave Baumover, David Egan, and Todd Norris, all from Frederick Police. Action taken. On Tuesday, August 14, 2018, I was asked to respond to FPD, which was located in Frederick, Colorado, to assist with a missing person investigation. Upon arrival, Matt Saylor, Stacy Galbraith, Greg Zentner, Kevin Kobach, and I met with FPD Detective Dave Baumover and Commander Dave Egan, and were briefed on the investigation. A short time later, FBI Special Agents Graham Coder and Kevin Hoyland arrived at the PD and received the same briefing. During the briefing, Detective Baumover advised us that on Monday, August 13th at 1:36 p.m., the FPD received a call for a welfare check at 2825 Saratoga. The reporting party of the welfare check was Nicole. And then lists Shanann, Chris, Bella, and Cece. It says Nicole told the police her friend was pregnant and had known medical conditions such as diabetes and lupus. Detective Baumover advised officers responded to the residence and contacted Nicole, who said she had not heard from Shanann the entire day, which was unusual. Nicole explained she and Shanann had just been in Arizona for 3 days, attending a Thrive conference, and she had dropped Shanann off at her residence before 2 a.m. Nicole further explained to police that she knew Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant and had a scheduled doctor's appointment at 10 a.m. that morning. Nicole said she went to Shanann's doctor's office and was informed Shanann never showed up for her appointment. Nicole said she then went over to Shanann's residence and tried the keypad on the front door. Nicole said the door unlocked, but she was unable to open it because the interior door latch was locked. Detective Baumover advised Nicole, and Nicole's son looked in the garage windows on the home and observed Shanann's vehicle, parked in the garage with the car seat still inside the vehicle. Detective Baumover explained Nicole and the responding officer began to get very concerned Shanann was inside and had a medical emergency. Detective Baumover advised the officer was getting ready to breach the front door of the residence when Chris pulled into the driveway. Chris was able to use his garage door opener to open the garage and gain access into the residence. Chris stated the keypad to the garage door did not work, which Detective Baumover later verified. Shanann, Celeste, and Bella were not located inside the residence. Detective Baumover advised he was called to the scene and interviewed Chris about his wife and children. Detective Baumover said Chris denied knowing where his wife and kids were located and explained he and Shanann had been having marital issues. Detective Baumover said Chris reportedly last saw Shanann when he left for work that morning at 5:27 a.m. Chris stated he got up for work at 4 and talked to Shanann about wanting a separation. Chris said both he and Shanann were in tears, but they did not argue. Chris said Shanann told him she was going to take the girls to a friend's house. Detective Baumover advised a neighbor of the Watts family had a motion-activated surveillance system, which showed Chris's work truck back up into the driveway the morning of Monday, August 13th, for approximately 10 minutes, which we know was very off. It was much longer. Detective Baumover stated it was difficult to be precise due to the angle, but it appeared the tailgate of Chris's work truck was backed in at least a foot inside the garage. Detective Baumover advised Chris's truck would not have been able to back up into the garage any further due to Shanann's vehicle still parked inside the garage. Detective Baumover stated that the surveillance video also did not show Chris driving away because the camera had turned off, which also is not accurate. We did see Chris drive away. Detective Baumover stated Chris also went over to the neighbor's house and observed the same footage and was aware of what had been recorded. Detective Baumover said he spoke to the neighbor who was advised he had never seen Chris back his work truck into his driveway before work in the past and had always parked on the street. Detective Baumover also told us Nicole knew Chris always used the front door when he left for work because his daughter's bedrooms were located over the garage and Shanann would yell at Chris for waking up the children by using the garage door. Chris told Detective Baumover he went to work after loading up his work truck with tools. Detective Baumover said Chris explained there had been frequent tool thefts from vehicles in the city of Frederick. which Detective Baumhover agreed was accurate, and Chris had put his tools inside the garage over the weekend. Chris stated he went to work at an oil well site near Hudson. Detective Baumhover advised Chris works as a field supervisor for Anadarko. Detective Baumhover also stated he spoke to Chris's supervisor, Luke, who indicated Chris was not acting right for someone who had their wife and children missing, which include wanting to go back to work on Tuesday, August 14th. Detective Baumhover advised Chris had consented to 3 searches of his residence, which included the use of cadaver and bloodhound dogs. Detective Baumhover advised a bloodhound possibly hit on Chris's work truck parked in front of the residence, but it was not conclusive enough due to the close proximity of the residence and the fact it was unknown if the wife and children had ridden in the work truck in the past. Detective Baumhover stated during the consent searches, Shanann's wedding ring, medication, purse, cell phone, driver's license, and currency were all located inside the residence. Detective Baumhover stated even the children's medication was still inside the residence. Detective Baumhover stated Chris was wearing a short-sleeved t-shirt when he spoke to him, and he did not notice any injuries to Chris's body. Detective Baumhover advised he had been hand-searching through Shanann's cell phone looking for information related to the disappearance. Detective Baumhover advised he did observe an email received by Shanann on Monday, August 13, 2018, between 2 and 2:50 a.m., advising her that her credit card had been denied. Detective Baumhover advised it appeared Shanann was attempting to purchase some hair care products the morning she had returned. Detective Baumhover stated the Watts family appeared to be living beyond their means and were possibly having serious financial issues. Detective Baumhover stated it seemed odd Chris wanted to talk more about his financial situation than the fact that his wife and daughters were missing. Detective Baumhover also indicated he received information that Chris had actually called his daughter's school, later determined to be Primrose School of Erie, at 8:15 a.m. on Monday, August 13, 2018. Chris allegedly told the employee of the school that he and his wife were selling their house and their children would, in quotes, not be coming there anymore. Detective Baumhover said Chris then asked the school employee, in quotes, "They're not there, are they?" During the briefing, I learned the Watts family had a leased white Lexus, possibly paid for using a car allowance through Shanann's employment with Thrive, and Chris had a white work pickup used for his employment with Anadarko. Detective Baumhover advised he had since learned Chris's work truck had GPS installed and he was waiting to get the records showing Chris's whereabouts. I'm not sure why they put white work truck. Detective Baumhover advised neither Chris or Shanann had a criminal history. Detective Baumhover advised uniformed officers were in the Watts' neighborhood continuing the neighborhood canvass. A short time later, Commander Egan received information that a uniformed officer in the neighborhood observed Chris packing up what appeared to be blankets and a cooler inside the white Lexus in the garage. Commander Egan was then informed Chris shut the garage door after packing the car, and a vehicle bearing gives a Colorado plate number showed up at the residence, and a male and female got out and went inside his residence. After speaking with Detective Baumhover and Commander Egan, I called CBI intelligence analyst Jillian Ganley and requested she issue a missing endangered alert for Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. I also took a picture of the bolo, attached, issued by the Frederick Police Department. It was determined the tips received from the investigation would be routed through Weld County Dispatch since the Frederick Police Department did not have 24-hour administrative staffing to answer phones. In addition, I called and spoke to Anadarko Regional Security Manager Tony. I informed Tony the CBI and FBI were assisting with a missing person investigation and requested Chris's GPS and work cell phone information as soon as possible. Tony advised he was waiting for approval from his legal department and would be sending the information to us directly. The GPS information and cell phone information for Chris's work cell phone were emailed and were analyzed by FBI Special Agent Kevin Hoyland. The documents received from Tony are also attached to this supplemental report. The email from Tony stated the following. This is in quotes. As requested, please find cell phone records for Chris Watts' phone, and then his phone number. Also included are his GPS records from his company vehicle. I requested 30 days for both. With regard to his work schedule, he works Monday through Friday, starting around 6 a.m. and finishing around 3 to 4 p.m. His supervisor said he was off on PTO July 31st to August 7th, returned to work August 8th to August 9th, and then was off on Friday, August 10th, with the request submitted several days, weeks in advance. His supervisor, Luke, also related that Watts spoke to him last week, probably Tuesday, August 7th, and stated he and his wife were having problems and he would be staying with a friend. In case his supervisor checked his GPS and found his vehicle was not at his residence at night. Luke said he didn't ask any questions and told Watts if he needed anything to make his family his priority. On August 13th, Watts contacted Luke and told him his wife had left him and he called friends and family and no one knew where she and the kids were. He said his head wasn't in the game and needed to take August 14th off. Watts further commented that police had been to his house and searched it and his wife's keys, purse, and phone were in the house. Luke stated Watts had a personal cell as well and listed the number. Please let me know if I may be of further assistance. Respectfully, Tony. Okay, then it goes on. According to the documents provided by Tony, it appeared Chris started his work truck at 5:18 a.m. on Monday, August 13th, 2018, and it remained on at his residence for 27 minutes. It appears Chris left his residence at 5:45 a.m. and drove 47 miles to an oil well site in Keensburg, Colorado. Chris arrived in Keensburg at 6:53. So next, what we have here is some GPS data from Chris's work truck provided by Anadarko. And I'm going to point out a few of these items, but there are no headings, which I am working on trying to get. There's no headings for the columns, so it's a little difficult on some of the columns to figure out what certain times mean. But I'll start with these couple highlighted ones on August 13th. So first, there is August 13th at 5:18 a.m. In the first date column, and the second date column also shows 5:18 a.m. but 30 seconds later. This is marked at 2905 Saratoga Trail, so this address actually picked up his neighbor, the one with the footage, Nate. And then the next highlighted item, the first date column says 5:46 a.m. and the second column shows 6:53 a.m. and the address on that one is Survey on 386 Highway, Keensburg, Colorado. So this is just the 5:27 a.m. I've seen where Chris has told them that he left at 5:27, or he backed his truck at 5:27. But here it's the first thing's listed at 5:18. So just going off of this, I'm not sure where they're getting that. But it shows that he then left at about 5:45 a.m. and drove all the way to Survey, 47 miles, arriving there at 6:53 a.m. Then it also shows his travels to Survey 1029. That starts at 9:30 a.m. and that goes all the way to 12:57 p.m., which contains 3 different data points here on the GPS. Then it shows him leaving Survey 1029 at 1:01 p.m. and driving all the way to 6507 Black Mesa Road, arriving there at 2:01 p.m. So 1 hour drive. This is where he stops in that area where the realtor told him to check another house as a comp for his, since they were working on selling it, or at least he was making it appear that way. So if you want to go back, there was Discovery page 170. I had read a report regarding 6507 Black Mesa. That's in video part 12. And that report just talks about the officer going over there, searching the dumpsters and such, but we know that those had been taken away already to the landfill. So that's some of the speculation on what Chris was doing there. whether it was just to enhance his story regarding checking houses that were also comparable to his, or if he was actually doing anything with evidence. So I encourage you to come back and look at this GPS data, and again, if I get the headings, I will share those. But take a look if you can. This is on page 555. You can just look at this video, obviously, and you can see some of this data for yourself. After reviewing the GPS data, I called Nicole and asked her if she would come to the police department for an interview. Nicole seemed bothered and advised she was getting ready to go to work. Nicole then agreed to call her work and said she would drive to the FPD to meet with me. A few minutes later, I got a call from Nicole, who was extremely angry and asked me repeatedly if she was going to be charged with a crime if she came to the police department. I explained to Nicole that we learned new information and were just trying to find Shanann and her children. Nicole said she had already given multiple statements to the police, and I informed her we would prefer a recorded interview. At that point, a male started yelling in the background that Nicole already spoke with the police and would not be coming in. Nicole stated it was not that she didn't want to help, but her employer could not find anyone to cover her shift. I asked Nicole if I could speak with her at her place of employment, and she agreed. Nicole stated she would be working until 6 a.m. and I could meet her any time during her shift. CBI agent Greg Zentner responded to Boulder to speak with Nicole. Next, we requested Detective Baumhover call Chris and ask him to respond to the FPD for a follow-up interview. Chris agreed and arrived at the police department shortly before 7 p.m. The interview with Chris was conducted by FBI Special Agent Graham Coder. I observed the interview from a live feed in the command post and previously spoke to S.A. Coder about offering Chris a polygraph. S.A. Coder conducted an approximate 3-hour interview with Chris concerning the disappearance of his wife and daughters. Please review S.A. Coder's report and the audio attached recording for details of the interview. During the interview, Chris indicated he had only had a few hours of sleep the night before. Chris agreed to take a polygraph, and I advised S.A. Coder it would be best to conduct the polygraph the following morning. Chris agreed to come to the police department the following day, Wednesday, August 15th, at 11 a.m. for a polygraph. Investigation continues. Attachments here: Anadarko current messages, current minutes, July bills, cycle minutes, Chris Watts August, Chris Watts July, S.A. Coder and Chris Watts audio interview, and Frederick PD Bolo. So next we have a CBI interview with Luke. This is a phone interview conducted by Tammy on August 14th. That is Tuesday. Action taken. On Tuesday, August 14th, I called and spoke to Christopher Watts' supervisor, Luke. Luke is currently a production foreman for Anadarko. Luke explained Chris has worked for him since April of 2016. Luke stated on Monday, August 13th, Chris was working on an oil field out by Rogan, Colorado, which he described as being located approximately 30 miles east of Brighton. Luke said Chris had 3 oil wells they needed to get up and running, and Chris was quote-unquote headed straight out there. Luke said he was not sure what time Chris arrived at the oil well site and would have to review his GPS records to know for sure. Luke said he was not at the well site personally because the guys do their work and can just call him if they have a problem. Luke said it was his understanding that Chris was at the oil field referred to as quote-unquote Survey Ranch almost the entire day on Monday, August 13th. Luke said he received a phone call from Chris on Monday, August 13th, stating he was leaving Survey Ranch to go home because he couldn't get a hold of his wife, Shanann. Next, I spoke to Luke about the GPS system in their work vehicles. Luke explained the GPS is activated as soon as someone starts the ignition in the work vehicle. Luke said the GPS also records any starts, stops, and the duration of any trip. I asked Luke to explain the conversation Chris had with him on August 7th. Luke said Chris told him he and his wife Shanann were having, quote-unquote, having some issues that they were trying to work out. Luke said Chris did not tell him he and Shanann were separating, but warned Luke if he saw anything quote-unquote goofy on his geotab that it was possibly due to him staying at a friend's house. Luke said Chris did not tell him the names of the friends he may be staying with. Luke said he told Chris to send him a text if he was ever going to stay anywhere but his residence. Luke said he never received a text from Chris stating he was staying somewhere else. Luke said Chris had never mentioned any issues between he and his wife in the past. I asked Luke if he was close to Chris. Luke explained Chris was one of the 13 men he had working for him, and Chris had worked for him over 2 years. Luke said he did not associate with Chris outside of work. I asked Luke who Chris was closest to at work, and he indicated it would be Troy. Luke said he did not know who Chris was close to outside of work. I asked Luke if he was aware Chris had attended a Colorado Rockies game on Sunday, and he said no. I asked Luke if he was aware of Chris having a girlfriend or Shanann having a boyfriend, and he said no. Luke said Chris never described the issues in his marriage, and he, Luke, didn't want to ask because it was not work-related. I asked Luke if Chris was allowed to drive his work vehicle when he was off, and he said no. Luke explained the truck is only for work. Luke said Chris would work some weekends on occasion, but it was rare. I asked Luke if the employees were allowed to run quick errands on their way home, such as picking up dinner, and Luke said yes. Luke said as long as the employee wasn't driving 30 to 40 miles out of their way, it was not a problem. I asked Luke if employees were allowed to have their families ride in their vehicles. Luke said other Anadarko employees and contract employees were allowed to ride in their work vehicles, but they generally do not allow other civilians to ride in their vehicles. I asked Luke if Chris would have been able to pick up his children from school, and he said, quote-unquote, if he needed to, yes. I asked Luke if he was aware of Shanann or Chris's children ever riding in his work vehicle, and he said, in quotes, not to my knowledge. I asked Luke if he was aware of what Chris drives when Chris is not at work, and Luke said no. I asked Luke if he had any information regarding Chris's financial situation, and he said no. I asked Luke if Chris had ever talked about his wife, and Luke said he had a little bit. Luke said they mostly talked about their children because they both have daughters at home. Luke said he knew Chris's daughters had been very sick over the last couple of years, and Chris talked about the stress it put on he and his wife. I asked Luke if Chris told him his wife was pregnant, and he said yes. Luke said Chris asked him to keep it secret because Chris hadn't even told his family. Luke said Chris seemed excited by the pregnancy. I asked Luke if he knew Chris's wife was on a trip, and he said yes. Luke said Chris told him Shanann was going out of state and had asked for some time off work. I asked Luke if he ever saw Chris with both of his cell phones at work, and he said no. Luke said most of his employees do carry 2 cell phones with them at work cell and personal cell. I asked Luke if he had any disciplinary issues with Chris in the past, and he said no. Luke described Chris as being very quiet and reserved, and said he sometimes has to pry a conversation out of Chris. Luke said Chris, quote-unquote, has been nothing but a good employee. Luke said he has never seen Chris lose his temper at work and has no concerns about Chris besides what he is going through with his wife and children missing. Luke said he had not seen or heard anything that would cause him concern over Chris. I asked Luke if he had spoken with Chris recently, and he said he spoke to Chris last night, Monday, August 13th, and this morning, Tuesday, August 14th. Luke said Chris is an introvert and doesn't like all the attention. Luke said Chris asked to come back to work, but the company said no because they were in an inherently dangerous business and they were concerned for everyone's safety with Chris's head, quote-unquote, not in the game. Luke said he tried to get Chris to come back to work tomorrow, Wednesday, August 15th, but their Human Resources Department didn't agree with that decision. I asked Luke if Chris had any theories about what happened to his wife and children, and he said no. Luke said Chris told him the events of the disappearance were something out of a movie or television show. Luke said Chris told him all of his wife's belongings and his daughter's belongings were left at the house, and it seemed like his wife just disappeared. Luke said Chris called him yesterday, Monday, August 13th, and said he couldn't get a hold of his wife, and his wife's friends also couldn't get a hold of her. Luke said Chris told him he needed to go home and find out what was going on. Luke said he told Chris it was fine, and if he needed the day off, just to let him know. Luke said all of the guys who work for him know Luke's philosophy is that family always comes first. Luke said he never heard from Chris Monday afternoon and texted him Monday evening around 9 p.m. Luke said Chris called him back immediately and said his wife and daughters were still gone and the police searched his house and vehicles with a warrant. Luke said he talked to Chris today, August 14th, and Chris told him he was tired of talking to the media. Luke said he was trying to come back to work to get a break from everything, but HR wouldn't approve him returning to work. I thanked Luke for speaking with me. I asked Luke if I could call him back if I had additional questions, and he said yes. Investigation continues. Attachments phone interview with Luke. So one thing I'd like to call out here is just the really the job well done by the HR department. Chris, in my belief, Chris was trying to get back to work so that he could probably get back over to Survey 319. So, really good, the HR department pushing back and saying no. That may have helped prevent anything else that Chris could have done on Tuesday or Wednesday at Survey 319. So on the next page is just a list of zipped attachments. They're actually all called attachment, and they range in numbering from S1 to S16. So that is where we're going to end part 25, completing page 563, discovery page. And next we are going to get into the next interview with the mistress. This was the one on August 16th, and where she was called in so that they could actually have video recording of an interview with her. So thank you as always for listening. Thank you for being here and continuing on this journey. And we are very close to actually getting through page 500 from an Adobe perspective, where we actually started on one. So we are moving along. In loving memory of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico. And God, we, as always, ask you to please bless the Rusek family. This is The Diplomat. Have a great day.